Alrighty. Hi again, everybody. Looks like we've got a couple more that have hopped on, and in the interest of time, I would love to make sure we get started here pretty quickly and make sure we've got a lot of time for questions at the end. This is a great presentation, and I know there's a lot here to digest, and it's a very interesting topic. So I want to make sure we've got lots of time at the end for questions as well. Thank you again so much for joining us. My name is Rosa Conrad. I'm a co-founder of Groundwork Digital and here to introduce our awesome panelists and presenters today. First, I am so excited to introduce Liz Georgie, founder and CEO of Mightier, really just a pioneer in making web-based videos and the best videos that are specifically for the web. Mightier is actually a preferred Facebook vendor. And so Liz's expertise today is going to be so beneficial for our conversation to really talk about how to use Facebook Live to the best of your ability. So Mighty's got just a range of great clients from Microsoft to TCF Bank and Pillsbury, even in the University of Minnesota. So lots of expertise across the board for us to share in. I'm also excited to introduce my partner at Groundwork Digital, President here for our digital fundraising firm, really focused on peer-to-peer giving days, major donor strategies, and how to use digital in the fundraising space. Justin is an Emmy-winning communicator, has done a lot of online fundraising campaigns, and actually has connected with Liz because they were both producers on this Emmy-winning video that they produced together. And so I'm so happy to introduce the both of them to talk to you a little bit more today about Facebook Live in fundraising. So first, I'm going to hand it off to Liz to kick off our presentation.
Well, hello everyone, and thank you so much for having us. We're very excited to walk you through some of the things that we know about Facebook Live and really how we're seeing it help our customers and our clients in the for-profit space and the nonprofit space see a lot of success, and how you can also build an hour-long Facebook Live pledge drive for your fundraising efforts in higher education. We're going to talk about three key things during this chat today. The first is how to build an hour-long Facebook Live pledge drive and really what a pledge drive looks like in very tangible terms. We're also going to talk about how to create a strategy to enhance the efficacy of that campaign with your content marketing plan. And then, of course, we're going to talk about how to use Facebook Live in the context of your Giving Tuesday or your giving days in general to have record-breaking results. I know that raising the money is really what this all comes down to. So, it's really interesting because when we talk about this concept with our nonprofit customers, they often ask us, why does this seem so familiar? And I always come back to the PBS Pledge Drive, that funny annual show that you would see with people on the phone in the background talking to folks who are calling in and giving their $10 or their $20. And in many ways, a Facebook Live pledge drive is kind of a very similar format. We're enhancing it, obviously, by using technology, but one of the things that we love most about it is that it really is limitless in its ability to be able to expand its reach to your entire network that you've already spent so much time building. I always think that, we have to recontextualize Facebook Live as a service. Many people tend to think of Facebook Live as a mobile phone treatment, something where they're using their phone to talk about what's going on in the moment or to show you an event that they're at a concert or what have you. But in fact, it is so much more powerful than that. And in our work with Facebook, we've really been helping to set the standard for how do you do professional quality production with Facebook Live. Putting the technology and the tools in place to be able to do that so that you feel proud of it as an organization, but also so that it really moves the needle for your own goals. So that's really the context within which we want you to be thinking about this discussion today. I want to talk to you specifically about why we think Facebook is such a powerful tool and why we think video specifically is such a powerful tool in that context. One of our customers here at Mightier is a nonprofit called Mental Health Colorado. And Mental Health Colorado really utilizes video to help tell stories of people who are impacted by the work that they do. It's not tough to contextualize this. They provide crisis and intervention services as well as policy and advocacy support for people in the mental health community and those suffering from mental illness. Last year we produced a tribute video for them that was really focused on some of the people who had been helped by their services. And one of those folks was a man named Evan who had schizophrenia and who was really going through a hard time. It wasn't so much that we wanted to share that video with legislators, actually, that was interesting, or to get other people to even give to their organization. In fact, what they really wanted to do was to inspire supporters to take an action on behalf of mental health issues and really get them to actually pick up the phone and advocate for a mental health issue that was really important to them. In the ACA, there was for a long time a loophole that medical insurance companies did not have to provide coverage for mental health services and screenings. And they had managed to actually close that loophole in the passage of the ACA. Obviously, there was a lot of fear about being able to keep that loophole closed. And so they actually used video to convince people, to get them excited about calling their legislator and asking them not to close that loophole. They have a vendor that tracks how many calls they get every year. And how many calls they're able to move. And so they shared this video at a few different, in a few different contexts. They shared it on Facebook, they shared it on YouTube, they shared it in an email push, and they also shared it at their annual event. And their vendor said that the year before, without any video, they had 201 calls to legislators. Last year, with the help of the video, they were able to push that number to 917 calls, which, if you've ever worked in public policy, you know that 917 calls is a lot of calls on a single issue. It's very, very difficult to get people to make those phone calls. And so I also want to provide you another nonprofit example. We work with another nonprofit called Clearway, Minnesota. They really work to advocate for stopping any kind of advancement of the tobacco industry in their advertising to youth. And so they had a campaign called Smoke Free Generation this year. And they just tracked in an email push, if they were to ask people to reach out to their legislators with just using an image and text, they'd get about 100 to 140 outreaches. And they consider outreaches being an email or a phone call. And in email blasts that had a video, they would generate about 280 to 300 outreaches on average. So really doubling the volume of people who are reaching out on their behalf. And I give you these examples because I think that oftentimes if we were to self-reflect on something like this, we would say, if somebody asked me for $10 or they asked me to call my legislator, which would my preference be? And for me, my preference would definitely be to give the $10. I think that video inspires action. I think it drives your supporters to be very involved and especially emotionally engaged in the process. And that engagement is really what we want to focus on when we're developing a Facebook Live strategy as well. So what is Facebook Live? You know, Facebook Live is really a way to speak to your fans. And so when we say fans, we're really talking about that network of people that are already liking or engaging with your page. So it's the ability to broadcast directly to those fans through that platform and receive priority on their news feed so that you will engage in real time. I mentioned before, it's been done most commonly with a smartphone. Professional production is where you can definitely get a little bit more bang for your buck. And your team can execute with professional production as well. And we can talk a little bit about how we're going to do that today from a topical point of view and from a run a show point of view. And we're also going to talk about it, we won't talk about it from a technical point of view, actually, is one thing I will say. We won't talk about how to actually go Facebook Live with cameras and things like that. So if that is something that you're interested in, we can point you to some resources to learn more about that. But we're really going to talk about it more from a content perspective today. Okay, so what's the for-profit world doing? Well, you know, they're doing a lot of Facebook Live. And the reason is that they love the immediacy of live and how quickly it gets you access to your audience. I'm not afraid to tell you that because we're a Facebook preferred vendor, they tell us a little bit more about why the product is so important to them. And one of the reasons that it's so important to them is because they feel that the time relevance of live content actually creates a demand and immediacy for retaining viewers that they don't see on any of their other media inputs. So, you know, you're going to get a lot more engagement on a live video than you are on a photo. And for them, keeping users around is their #1 goal. They want to keep users engaged on Facebook and coming back to that news feed again and again and again. And so live creates this dynamic conversation where there is a moment in time where you've got to engage. There's a natural deadline because eventually that live feed is going to end. And it also gives you the opportunity to react. Audiences love being able to give you thumbs up, hearts, shocking faces, sad faces, give you comments, ask questions in real time. And the fact that you can see those things and really capitalize on those things just further enhances people's excitement about the experience. So I really, when we started talking with the team at Groundwork Digital about, okay, so how do we take this and apply it to a pledge drive or a giving day? For us, it was all about understanding, number one, advertising that you're going to do it. In many ways, you probably already have a marketing plan around your giving day, whether it be sending out letters or having images or gifts that you're going to share on social media or tweets, but actually changing the conversation a little bit to being, hey, at 2 o'clock on May 1st, we're going to have our very first Facebook Live Giving Day, and we want you to join us. We're going to have a special hour of content that's designed just for you, and it really makes it an event. It makes it a moment in time that they do not want to miss. After that, we really talk about planning a run of show. A run of show is something that we will give you an exact example for later on in this presentation, but a run of show is basically how do you plan an hour of content in a way that gets people engaged for that entire hour and then ultimately makes room for them to give. And so you plan how you're going to ask them to give, when you're going to ask them to give, and what you're going to ask them to give. And of course, the thing that we always think about is that you've got to know what your call to action is. You know that from your email marketing, from your other marketing efforts, of course, but the call to action in this case is give today during this drive because we're doing something special for this point of the conversation. And then, of course, inviting that conversation to continue, asking people to share that session, asking people to share the live stream with their friends on their social feeds to just further expedite the growth of the number of people who are going to watch in real time.
All right. Awesome, Liz. We'll talk to you in a few minutes again. But I think this is a perfect point to jump off and talk a little bit more about the online giving day itself. In and of itself, the online giving day is an enormous celebration of philanthropy for your organization. As a matter of fact, even though we see huge numbers of new donor acquisition and retention, we see major donors getting involved. We'll talk about all that in a second. The number one reason why we would recommend any of our clients consider a big online giving event like a giving day or getting involved with Giving Tuesday is the marketing value. The number of people you have excitedly talking about giving back to your organization, talking about the mission, sharing it with their friends. Obviously, Facebook Live is a great way of driving people to that mission, and in some cases might be entirely how you do your giving day or maybe even a giving hour. But let's just talk a little bit more about the concept first to really kind of drive home why the marriage of live video content and a giving day is so effective. First of all, I think we have yet to have a client where it hasn't been the annual fund's biggest day of the year, a giving day. In terms of number of donors, in terms of dollars raised, usually by many factors of X, a giving day is an enormous boost for an annual fund and most of the goals associated with it. There's huge new donor acquisition, especially when online ambassadors are involved. We're going to detail an online ambassador program in just a second here, but it makes sense, right? When you have online ambassadors, and there are other words for them might be advocates or influencers, this is a peer-to-peer program where you find people who are active online, active in the digital space, and you get them content about your mission, you get them solicitations, they share it with their network, and when they do that, they're opening up your mission, your message, your fundraising ask to an entirely new group of people, whole new segments of people. Even in higher education, this works incredibly well, where it's a bit more siloed because you only have so many people in your network who share the same alma mater. But it still works very, very well in higher education. And then when you get outside of higher education, it's insane. We've had something like 75% new donor acquisition during online giving days when online ambassadors are involved. Critical, I would say, not just powerful, but critical for donors under the age of 40. And a quick note on that, whenever we talk about millennials, I think we sometimes fall into the trap of saying that, oh, those kids, right? 25-year-olds just out of college, and that's the image that's that we conjure up when we think of a millennial. It's really not true, actually. Millennials, the oldest millennials on January 1st are going to be 38 years old. Most of them are in their 30s. The youngest people just out of college right now, those 23-year-olds, that's Generation Z. That's an entirely different generation, for which digital is also very important. But for millennials, it's critical as well. We've known that for a long time. We know that peer-to-peer is critically important for millennials. We know that a strong, dynamic, vibrant online presence is important for millennials. And they're not just kids anymore. They are the meat of your donor population. Pretty much everyone 40 and younger. A very important group. They've always been an important group. They're an even more important group. And events like online giving days, in the many different forms they can take, which we will discuss quite a bit more throughout the webinar, are very important tactics for engaging that group. And like I said, it's a marketing tool. So many people tweeting about it, posting on Instagram, commenting on Facebook, lots of content going out. It's your one excuse, or maybe a handful of excuses, to just be constantly in the face of your donors throughout the year. And you know what? They actually appreciate it. Here's one that I think, if the fact that most millennials are almost 40 years old now surprises you, this might surprise you even more. Giving days and online in general is a great tool for engaging major donors in a number of different ways. We first recognized this more than 5 years ago when we did one of our first ever giving days, one of the first ever giving days at Florida State University, the Great Give. Did that in January of 2012 with a great team led by Chad Warren. And it was a wonderful annual giving event. We had a couple $100,000 in small gift activity, several thousand, about 1,100 donors, and good new donor acquisition in the 30% range. Ticked off all of those boxes as far as the annual fund is concerned. Probably the most amazing thing, though, was during that event, we had not a donor, but a prospect. This is someone who's never given a penny to Florida State University call and make an unexpected $100,000 gift during the Florida State Great Give, and they were not at all ambiguous about their reason. The reason they were giving, they said, is because they love what they're seeing in their news feeds. They love what's happening online. They love to know that there's this huge community supporting Florida State, and they feel it's time that they do their part. And they did with a $100,000 gift. They're actually one of 12 donors that day who were identified major donor prospects, but who had never given a gift to Florida State before, but did make their first gift during what was a very vibrant online giving day. We've, of course, built on that, and we have a very deliberate major donor engagement strategy, not just for giving days, but for throughout the year, for supporting campaigns, for crowdfunding, for stewardship, for cultivation, and giving day, of course, is a big part of that. And these are more like the numbers that we're seeing now as a result of it. Giving days well into the 7-figure range. In some cases, it is a matter of going to the donors and talking about the gifts they're going to make, or even have already made or in the process of making, but giving them the opportunity to use that as their match or a challenge. Not a bad idea, because you're driving more support, first of all, when you have that match or challenge. But also, that's major donor stewardship. That's putting their name in lights. We call it digital naming rights. And it makes a lot of sense to steward those donors in a way that matters to them. And for some of them, supporting a very positive, very vibrant, very public event like a giving day with a match or a challenge is a way to do it. Of course, we want to use this to drum up new activity too, and that's why we like to get in early and have a major donor engagement strategy early, so that we can talk about, we can work with gift officers, and we can be part of that annual solicitation process. So the gift they're working on and hoping to ask for in the next 6 to 10 months, a giving day might be part of that, and they can make that work for them. And then we're seeing it happen by accident. World Vision United States, a wonderful organization that's doing a lot of really cool stuff with major gifts, actually, especially in the digital space. And one of the reasons why they're doing it is because they just happen to have a donor, a major gift donor, who went to the crowdfunding platform they had on the website, set up a campaign for her birthday, set a $60,000 goal for 24 hours, which for those of you who work with crowdfunding at all would realize that is preposterous. You would never suggest anyone set a goal that high, especially a single person for a 24-hour event like their birthday. But this woman did that because she's a major donor, and those are the terms and the number of zeros that she thinks in. So she set that up, and she raised more than $61,000 in 24 hours. 12 people who gave gifts had never given a gift to World Vision before, but they saw their friend, this woman's crowdfunding project, and they gave gifts ranging from $1,000 to $5,000, immediately making them leadership annual giving donors, and obviously making them major gift prospects. Major donors are out there, they're online, they are very active in this space. So let's talk about how we get all these elements right. I mentioned the peer-to-peer program. Peer-to-peer is the most trusted form of advertising or promotion around the world. It's a Nielsen study from 2013. Nothing else comes close. And we're not talking necessarily about online. We're simply talking about a recommendation from someone that you know. That same study, interestingly, if you look at the top 5 categories of most trusted forms of promotion advertising, again, peer-to-peer is a clear number 1 around the world, and in North America as well. But the second, I think second, third, and fifth, or maybe second, fourth, and fifth categories were all online. Emails a person signed up for was a category, branded websites, maybe social accounts, something along those lines. So people trust online sources. They really trust a recommendation from a friend. When you put those together, you get results like this. 2015 Blackbaud study of emails found that when an online ambassador sends an email, 1 in 4 people who receive that email from their friend will make a gift. That is a staggering 25% conversion rate on email. Even more staggering when you consider that when you send the exact same email, but you change the sender from someone that they know to the institution or organization's name, there's a 0.08% conversion rate. That means that an online ambassador email is 312 times more effective at getting a gift from a donor than an email from an institution or organization. It almost makes you wonder why we would even bother doing anything that wasn't involving online ambassadors when it comes to email. And actually, it's a legitimate question, because there are some organizations like Carleton, like Princeton, that really rely on peer-to-peer, not just in the online form, but in the general sense, for all of their annual fund giving. And there's maybe that's the reason why they have some of the highest participation rates in online and higher education as well. Online influence disproportionately affects higher price purchasing decisions. So what that means is when you're going to buy a car versus going to buy a toothbrush, what you're hearing from your friends online, what you're seeing posted online, the videos you're watching online, especially if it is coming from a friend, that's going to much more greatly influence and be a factor in your decision for that car than it would be for a toothbrush. You probably won't even ask for feedback on a toothbrush. On some level, I think that's also true for fundraising. A very big gift, a gift of a lifetime, a 6-7 figure gift, that is something that is going to have a wide range of factors influencing it. And the more that your network, the more that your community supports you making that gift, you are far more likely to make that gift. Whereas, of course, a $25 gift, it's Giving Tuesday. Your favorite organization sends you an email, you make a generous gift of $25. But you're probably not sourcing a whole lot of information from your community to do that. You might get that email from an ambassador that might influence that. But the point is, and again, this is research back 2014, Word of Mouth Marketing Association study says that online influence has a very high degree of impact on higher price purchasing decisions. Building ambassador programs, it is, I don't want to say it's complicated necessarily in concept, but in application and execution it can be sometimes. First things first, you want to find people who have real influence and who love you. That's really it. That's the only 2 criteria. Someone who has real online influence, uses social media, uses email, uses the web to engage people, and really like your mission and are talking about your mission quite a bit. The best way to do this for any organization of any size whatsoever is through software. The technology is not terribly expensive. Far less than $10,000. You can get an email database of 100,000 plus search, scanned, get results on several thousand influencers back, build a world-changing online ambassador program. If you have any budget whatsoever, this is one of those places where you definitely want to spend it. Taking the time to go through manually, search Twitter feeds, search who's commenting and sharing things on Facebook. If you're just looking for a small group of people to test some things with, that's okay. It kind of works. But if you really want to be a really want to build a successful online ambassador program, technology is critical in the identification phase. The engagement phase is one of the trickiest pieces. To make it really simple, we usually have 2 approaches. We have a one-to-one approach where we're actually talking with each individual online ambassador. For our major donor online ambassadors, of course, we're doing this because they're major donors. It's how we do things. For our biggest influencers, even if they might not be online ambassadors, we still want to have that one-to-one engagement with them. Even for a big school, I'm talking about some of the biggest institutions that we're working with, or an international nonprofit, you're probably still only having maybe 100 personal conversations. For the most part, it's a mass marketing, highly targeted and personalized, because everything should be at this point, of course, but it is a mass marketing approach, usually using email. We do a blend of webinar, video, and events. So we do live events too if the ambassador is in a tight geographical area. But again, another case where video is critical because you really want to be able to explain and demonstrate the impact for online ambassadors. We have to be able to get them out there with great content. We want to inspire ambassadors to share, so we do have to have really good content. Ambassadors can be instrumental in that marketing push to get people to watch a Facebook Live, for example, because especially if they're on Facebook and they're sharing that live on Facebook and they're asking their friends in real time to join the conversation, that can move mountains. That can really drive up the the number of people who are viewing it. So we want to get great content out, and of course we're going to talk a lot more about great content in just a bit. We want to steward these ambassadors with experiential thank yous and demonstrate the impact of sharing. Now, this is kind of the stewardship piece for the ambassador program. What we're starting to find is that even really cool prizes, like really nice Yeti coolers and awesome merchandise and gear, isn't as effective for online ambassadors at getting them to come back and share again as just showing them what they're doing through their sharing. So having technology that can track how many people are clicking on links and showing the reach, and especially showing how many gifts are given, how much was raised, and even more so, specifically the name of the person who gave a gift through an ambassador's link, showing that to the ambassador, that's what gets them to come back. That's what gets them really excited. So that's how you really want to steward them and keep them coming back for more. I mentioned major donors. Here's a whole novel concept and a way of doing a giving day, and I think Facebook Live plugs into this too, and I'll explain that in just a second. But this is the Marcos Lemonis Challenge. Marquette's done this for at least 2 years now that I know of. The first year, Mr. Lemonis put up a $300,000 match and used his online presence to drive. He's like a one-person online ambassador campaign, driving support for this challenge, getting people to give to match his challenge. He did it in the first year. He and Marquette raised about $1 million. So, you know, obviously after that, in year two, they said 300,000 is not enough, and Marcos Lemonis gave $1.5 million. So a $300,000 gift led to $1 million campaign in year one. In year two, he asked the community to match $1.5 million. They did to the tune of $1.7 million, raising more than $3 million, all in total over the course of about a month. One of the things that we're doing with our clients is moving away from the concept of today's a giving day because it matters to the institution. It's Founders Day, homecoming, spring, this and that, what have you. We think it might even be more effective to do a number of micro-giving days around certain communities with these major donors as the lead, taking the lead, putting up a big challenge, and building it around what really matters to those donors. So that's a new tactic, and when we think about it, we think about an even hyper-micro campaign. Think about that hour-long pledge drive, or maybe even a 2-hour-long pledge drive, something that you can do on Facebook Live, putting this donor front and center if they have that big personality, if they love the attention, and building a campaign around them. Great way to engage major donors and make them a part of online giving days. Again, like I said, matches or challenges, a wonderful opportunity when you're talking with major donors throughout the year. You can build a solicitation plan around a giving day if you think that donor would be interested in supporting that giving day. We just talked to a client this week that couldn't say enough about how much their donors were interested in seeing young alumni give. There's almost no better tool than a giving day. There's almost no easier way to guarantee that you can get 250 young alumni gifts than a giving day. And if you promise that donor that their $500,000 match is going to make that happen, everybody wins, especially the donor who gets to see their name in digital lights and is a big part of that campaign and the reason why they accomplished the goal that they were looking to accomplish. So you want to get major donors involved, definitely during a giving day. I would strongly consider that you build giving days around major donors and major donor priorities. You know, same is true of a crowdfunding campaign. In a way, this kind of was a crowdfunding campaign. We have our project leaders for crowdfunding, and Marcos Lemonis was this, you know, project leader raising an enormous amount of money for, you know, an enormous crowdfunding campaign. But it has a lot of the same elements, some of the same basic principles. Good technology is always a must. Well, you know, within Facebook, of course, you can drive people straight to a Facebook giving page. Facebook does have that fundraisers option. It's a good thing to set that up. It has its limitations in terms of, you know, what you can do as far as getting donor data, but it is a very smooth, almost one-click giving process for the donors, and the audience is enormous. There's 2 billion people on Facebook. You know, everyone has several hundred friends, so when they share something on Facebook, you know, it can work quite effectively. Of course, you can also take a link, put it in that description on Facebook, and drive people to your own page. And that's a good idea, too, because if you have really good technology, you can get that gift secure, get some more information from the donor as well. Long story short, what you don't want to do is send people to an awful, cumbersome, non-mobile friendly gift form after they had this really dynamic experience during a Facebook Live video. You either want to get that gift within Facebook, or you want to send them to someplace that is just as dynamic and just as user-friendly. Last thing before turning it over to Liz, because Liz will obviously build on the content strategy piece, I really want to talk about how critically important content is. Beulah donor loyalty study, I think this is within the last year or two, very recent. Donors said that they will stop donating to a nonprofit. 72% of donors said they will stop donating to a nonprofit because of poor, vague, or irrelevant content. That is, I mean, that's a shocking number. That's basically 3/4 of your donors saying, you don't have a chance to retain me if you're not putting a great deal of effort and emphasis and resources behind content that tells a story that connects me to the mission. It really is pretty simple. I mean, content's what got them there in the first place. Whether it's an old school approach of getting them a really great mailer or whether it's a new school approach of getting them to give online, they heard a story, it connected with them, they gave because of it. You should always be striving to be better at telling that story because that's how you're going to keep them around, and the numbers don't lie. And really the math is pretty simple. If you look at the new donor retention rate across the nonprofit industry, we see that's sitting at 23%. So if you get the content right, you have almost 100% donor retention. It's worth it. It's worth the investment in doing content right. And when it comes to content, nothing is more powerful than video. This is a Google study from 2013 that found that 57% of everybody who watches a nonprofit's video will eventually go on to make a gift to that nonprofit. Not clicking on the video necessarily and donating at that point in time, but they will, within a certain time frame, eventually give to that nonprofit. If this is even 1/10 true, if it was only 5% of people who watch a video make a nonprofit, even a reasonably small, Facebook page with a good live event will get 2,000 viewers. I mean, think what we're doing there. We're getting hundreds of people to give every time you're putting up a really effective Facebook Live video, or really just an effective video if you can get the viewers on it. Video is king. It is crucial. Content's an important part of this. It's a absolutely fundamentally basic part of an online giving day. So you really have to focus on getting that done and getting it done right. And with that in mind, I'm going to toss it back to the person who gets content right on a very regular basis. So Liz, I'll let you take it from here.
Well, thank you, Justin. So I always feel like you hear all these great things about video and then you go, oh my God, but video is so hard. And so I like to say, let's just go ahead and get the mistakes that people make out of the way that can often make them not want to embrace the medium. So the first is that they aren't willing to embrace the immediacy of the platform. Of course, live is happening now. That means this minute. It means that there is, this isn't a dress rehearsal. It's happening at this moment. So you've got to embrace the immediacy if you're going to be successful. The second is that they don't have a plan for engaging with the audience in the conversation. So one of the beauties of Facebook Live that we've just never had before in our modern media is the ability for people to give comments and respond and react in real time to the video that you're putting out there in the world. So making a point to engage with the audience as it's happening can really maximize your results. And then, of course, not having a clear ask. Just going live to go live is really great, and it certainly is an awesome marketing tactic. But in the context of a giving day, we've really got to get people clear on the ask. And so is the ask $25 from 100,000 people? Is the ask $250 from 100 people? What is the ask that we're making that day? And let's make it really clear. I think that one of the things that makes or breaks a great live stream is whether or not you have the right host. And it's important to understand that the right host isn't often who you think it is. Your president, your chancellor, a high-profile person at your university or college, it might not be the right host. The right host might be a student. It might be a leader of a college or of a department. It might be a professor who's beloved. Picking the right host is really about understanding who do people want to talk to for an hour? Who would be a great person to have a cup of coffee with for an hour? And choosing the wrong time is also really critical. One of the things we'll talk about in great detail is how to look at your analytics to make that decision about when to do it. We don't suggest choosing a time like right away in the morning as a good example for most companies, because most people aren't engaging with brands and with different organizations on social media at those times early in the morning. And then, of course, if you've got these two things down, you're ready to kick ass. And so if you're ready to kick ass, that means you're embracing the immediacy, you're embracing the fact that it's live. It means that you are absolutely 100% ready with a plan for sharing with the audience and engaging with the audience, and your production team is on board, and you've got consensus around your ask. We want your donations and go here to donate. You don't want to make it confusing. You don't want to say, boy, oh boy, I've got, we'd love for you to go to this website, or we'd love for you to tune in a little bit longer, or we'd love for you to buy this water bottle, or we'd love for you to come to this game on Saturday. You just want to have one ask. And what that one ask is usually we want donations, and this is where you go to donate. Okay, so back to this host conversation. How do you pick an engaging and friendly host? I mentioned it's somebody that maybe you want to have a cup of coffee with. But I would also say some other really great hosts might be somebody who's an emerging leader at your organization, perhaps a vice president of a department, somebody who has a lot of personality. Oftentimes, if you look around an organization, you'll find that there are people who have former radio skills, former television skills, have actually worked in journalism. These are great people to ask because they're actually going to create a conversation and a run of show that people want to be a part of. And it's important to understand that this might not be a high-profile person. Those that are engaging may not actually know that this person is important at the university. And so you want to make sure that it's somebody who you can feel comfortable with from a hosting perspective. Then you can bring in your high-profile people as guests, and that's really where the magic happens. A really great host with a high-profile guest is going to give you a lot better results. Okay, so now, using your analytics. Here is the #1 way to ensure that your live stream is going to be successful. I want you to look at your analytics for all of your social accounts, not just your Facebook account, but actually all of your social accounts, to see when are we getting the most return on our investment of content. For example, are you seeing the most number of likes and comments on Facebook posts on Tuesday from 2 to 4 p.m.? Or are you seeing the most tweets on Wednesday from 1 to 3? Are you seeing the most views on YouTube on Saturdays from 9 to 11? You want to pull all that data because you want to be able to understand what are our 3 to 4 hotspot times. That might be a really great opportunity to host a live stream, because that is going to be the moment where you're going to be blasting out to all those people to not just promote the live stream, but that's when you're going to host it as well. So using an aggregate set of data from all these accounts, you should be able to narrow in on 2 to 3 times that would be optimal. And then from there, you can start to put the team together and understand what resources you need in order to make that time happen. Okay, so we're going to produce your live pledge drive now. This is a very literal way to get through it. I want you to think about 45 minutes of guided discussion. I want you to think about 15 minutes of questions and organic, natural conversation from the audience. Guided discussion is very different from organic conversation. Guided discussion means that you know what questions are going to be asked and you know what answers are going to be given. Okay, so now that you've got that understood, what does that 15 minutes of community conversation look like? Well, it could be responding to questions in real time. So for example, maybe somebody asks a question like, are you ever going to do this again? And then you could say in real time, not necessarily planned for, but just say, we're absolutely going to try to do this again if it's successful for our Giving Tuesday. You do not have to do all of these community questions at once. You can stagger them throughout the conversation and have them go on in an ongoing format. Meaning, you can maybe do some community questions at the 5-minute mark, at the 25-minute mark, and the 55-minute mark, and that is a great way to plan your programming. And we'll talk about that in the run of show. And then, of course, you want to have a regular ask and an easy deadline to understand. So the regular ask might be, we're asking that during this live stream, every person who watches gives $20 and that they do it before the end of the live stream so that we can raise $20,000 before the end of this day. That's a really great and clear ask with a clear deadline integrated into it. Okay, so you are like, Liz, this is a lot of work, I'm sure, at this point. But let me tell you, there's so many ways to make it easy. One way to do that is to provide a prompted opportunity for Q&A. So for example, you might have your host say, we are looking for your questions. We want you to ask questions. What are you curious about? What's on your mind? What do you think is really exciting that's currently happening? Respond to our interviews and tell us what you're thinking. Asking people to engage is a great way to get them to engage. And then you might, again, remember I said inviting your high-profile people as guests. Well, you want to think about who are the guests or two who can contribute to the conversation meaningfully. And really you want to be thinking about 10 to 15 minutes apiece, and that's about it. So what could your president talk about for 10 minutes? What could a professor talk about for 10 minutes? What could a scholarship recipient talk about for 10 minutes? You really want to make sure it's something they're going to be comfortable talking about, and it's going to be something that they're going to be willing to talk about for about 10 minutes. And then you want to have a clear plan for promoting your live stream pre and post. So beforehand, it's really all about telling people when, where, and what time. It's on Facebook Live, it's on this day, and it's at this time. After it's over, it's all about sharing it. Okay, so let's talk about run a show. Run a show is how we actually make this happen. So this is trade secrets from my dear. This is an actual run of show that we do with our clients. So a run of show is really made of 4 parts, and it's your introduction, your request for engagement, your real ask, and your content and conversation. I'm going to walk you through this step by step. Your introduction is really your host. This is going to be your host saying, welcome to our Giving Tuesday event at our university. We are so glad you're joining us today on Facebook Live for this very special Giving Tuesday. My name is Liz, and I am the, professor of media studies at this university. And I'm here because I truly believe in Giving Tuesday and the importance of getting more people to give to this university, specifically for our scholarship programs. We'll be hosting this live session for about another hour, and during this time, we really would like for you to engage with us. You can engage with us in the comments. Feel free to ask your questions in the comment section, and of course, please do share this live feed with your network, as this is how we're going to get the word out about our goal for the day. So what is our goal for Giving Tuesday? Well, I'm so excited to be able to tell you that we are trying to raise $20,000 during this live stream. During this live show, I'm going to interview the president of the university. I'm going to talk to one of our scholarship recipients, a student who's in the College of Engineering, and we're even going to show you a behind-the-scenes sneak peek at some of the new facilities that we're building at our biology lab. And I'm really excited to tell you that one of our professors from the biology school will be here to share some behind-the-scenes information about that. So in exchange for all of this awesome conversation, we would also love for you to be part of our giving effort. Today, for every single person that is going to give us a $20 gift during our Giving Tuesday, we're going to retweet or post a thank you message to them on Twitter. And that will be just during this 1 hour long window. So you really have to get it done today. All right, so at this point, I'd like to go ahead and invite the president of our university to join me in this conversation. Okay, so you guys have literally just heard me do about 3 minutes of hosting. That is exactly what the beginning of your live stream is going to sound like. You can steal this verbatim and allow your host to use it. I will not be offended. I'll be very excited for you. The content and conversation then is really going to be all about having your host come in and have a conversation with them. So your president is going to be there, and you're going to have some pre-planned questions. What are the university's goals for the year? What are some things you're really proud of? Tell us a little bit about about some of the initiatives that we currently have going on, and allow that conversation to just take place. Once you've done about 10 minutes of conversation, you're going to probably get some new viewers. And so then I just say you repeat. You start at the top again. So you literally start at the top again and say, in case you haven't, in case you're just joining us or you just joined us recently on this Facebook live stream, hi, my name is Liz, and I'm so excited that you're here for our Facebook Live event for Giving Tuesday. And then you just go through it again. And then maybe after you've gone through it again, you say, okay, before we get to this conversation with the president of the student union, I'd like to take some of your questions. Oh, look, we have a wonderful question from a student. Her name is Alexandra, and she is wondering when the new dorm construction will be done. Well, I'm really excited to be able to tell you that according to the president in our conversation earlier, he said it will be done by the end of the year. So we really look forward to that being completed. Oh, look, another question. So you see, it's very much about just continually repeating the process so that you have a workflow. You have a literal run of the show. And then you do that until your hour is up. And let me tell you, that hour goes by so fast. You will not believe how fast that hour goes by. We are going to give you this as a freebie so that you can use it. And then, of course, you know, I'm always happy for people to show us how they adapt it and make it work for them. All right, so why does this work? This works because Facebook honestly really, really wants it to work. You know, it's been really, really interesting getting to know their organization better. They truly believe that they are going to be a media company in the future. And so you have to understand that their long-term strategy is to keep users on the site, much in the way that ABC and CBS and NBC are always trying to keep you on their channels. Facebook has a very similar approach. And so by you creating content that's going to keep users around, that makes them motivated to push your content towards the top of that feed and to really improve the volume of people who are going to watch. Of course, none of this works without understanding that the sense of urgency that you get from live is unlike any other kind of media that you're going to put out there. An email blast can never quite replicate the sense of enticing pressure that this particular type of media produces. So what are you going to do next? You're going to listen to your data, look at the highest periods of engagement and what kind of content drives that engagement, and pick a time for your live stream that reflects that data. After you've done that, you're going to print this run a show and you're going to start producing your content, figuring out who's going to run it, who's your guests, and all of those important pieces. You want to experiment in low-risk scenarios. I don't suggest just doing a Facebook live stream the first time ever for Giving Tuesday. You might try doing it for a quick 10-minute conversation or might do a test scenario for a lower risk event. Maybe do a live stream from an event or from a conference or something like that, where you're not going to have such a big ask of people and it's a little bit less risky. So in case, you know, people always ask me after we talk about this, like, oh, this seems so exciting. Could we just hire you to do this? You absolutely can. My Dear does Facebook Live single events for $7,500 flat fee. And so that's just something where we come in and we help you produce your run of show. We actually do all the technical execution, and we make sure that you have all of your fears allayed. We handle everything from the management of the conversation to making sure that you've got the community engaged in a way that's productive, and comment management, and kind of anything and everything in between.
Awesome, awesome, awesome. And then, of course, everything we talked about from online ambassador programs, giving day planning, crowdfunding planning, major donor engagement strategies, we do all of that work. And hopefully, as we demonstrated today with the webinar, we work quite well together with Mightier. And we would love to plan a giving day with you, with Mightier, to really blow it out of the water and do what would really truly be an innovative, awe-inspiring, donor-grabbing event. So we'd love to hear from you. Any questions you have, want to hear more about the slides that we have today, some more stats, just general conversation, or you're interested in working with us, drop us an email, let us know. And now I think what we'd like to do is open this up for some questions.
Absolutely. We've got a couple questions already, but I would, again, if anyone has questions, the questions panel down at the bottom of your control panel gives you the opportunity to ask some questions there as well. So I'll start with a couple of the ones we've got, and I think is a really interesting one I know I hear a lot from nonprofits and different colleges is really about how much content is too much content on social on the day of. There's a little bit of a fear there to make sure we don't scare away our Facebook fans and our supporters. So what would you think on a day, say like a Giving Day or Giving Tuesday? How much is too much content?
That's a great question. Liz, do you have any thoughts on that before I weigh in?
My number one thing is if you've got good content, do it. I don't think you have to worry so much about how much content as long as it's quality content. If you're just, saying the same thing over and over again, I take issue with that, but I'd love to hear what Justin has to say about that.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the simplest and best way of putting it. Couldn't put it better myself, to say that it's all about the quality. If you have wonderful content, you should post that content ad nauseum, as much as you have, 20 times a day. And think about the way social networks work now. It might have been true 5, 10 years ago that you want to be careful not to be the only one showing up in someone's Twitter feed or the only thing showing up on someone's Facebook page, because, yeah, maybe they would unfriend you as a result of that. That's not the case anymore. All of these social networks, of course, have become much more intelligent and sophisticated with their algorithms. They are very, very good, sometimes to the detriment of society, but they are very, very good at showing us exactly what we want to see, exactly what we would agree with, exactly what we want to click on and like, because they have to do that. That's their business model. Their whole existence depends on giving us the experience we want in a Facebook feed, for example. So that means that if a person is going to get tired of, your content, if they're not clicking on it, they're not liking it, and it's not in line with the things that they typically click on and like, they're not going to see any more than 1 or 2 of those 14 posts you put out there that day. Likewise, if they're eating it up, if they're enjoying every second of it, they're going to see everything you post, and that's good because they're going to react positively to it, and they're probably going to take action on it. So, we still hear this on a pretty regular basis, and it's certainly based in truth. I mean, it used to be you had to be very careful not to saturate your audience with content and drive them away, but that's not the case anymore, because no matter how much you post, people are going to see it, and the people who are going to see it are those who are going to react to it positively, who are going to like it. It's going to strengthen the relationship with them. So again, just to build on what Liz said, absolutely keep posting as much as you can possibly produce good content.
Awesome. Well, we've got a related question here from the questions boxes for Facebook Live specifically. When we're looking at the content, how short is too short, and how long do you think is too long?
I can go ahead and take that. How short is too short is really probably anything that's less than 5 minutes. And the reason for this is that really Facebook rewards how many people are viewing something as an indication of whether or not they continue to advance its placement in news feeds for users. So anything less than 5 minutes is probably not going to get enough exposure to build up a core audience. Anything more than an hour is honestly going to be just so difficult to produce. I truly tell people what you're really producing is an hour of television. It's no different than having to come up with what you would have to do in an hour of live TV. And so for most organizations, an hour is a huge lift anyway. And so we say more than 5 minutes, less than an hour, and really anything in between can be a sweet spot.
Awesome. That's perfect. One of the other things I know we get asked a lot, and you probably do as well, Liz, is really about the cost of video and making sure that it is professional enough. How do you do video in kind of that affordable fashion for, say, a cash-strapped nonprofit?
Yeah, there's sort of different tiers of video quality, right? We all know that we all would love to see the cinematic, beautiful shots of every single thing. But the fact is that viewers aren't actually really expecting every single video they see to be epically beautiful. In fact, when we survey audiences on the efficacy of a video, we often hear that audio quality is more important to them than visual quality, being able to hear something okay. And so what we tell people is that if your number one and only way to produce an affordable video is on a smartphone, there's some simple things that you can do to improve the audio, to just improve the overall experience. So the first would be, you can literally buy a $20 lavalier microphone, a small clip-on microphone on Amazon for a phone. It's a great way to improve the audio. The second way, just record these things in a quiet room. A room that's got a couch in it and doesn't have a bunch of doors opening and closing or a bunch of street noise outside. That's just going to create an audio ambiance. And if it's just an interview or it's just somebody talking straight to camera, inviting you to give or something like that, it doesn't need to be super fancy. So understand that there's some little $20 fixes and some choices that you can make to produce some pretty quality video at a much lower cost.
Awesome. That's fantastic. We've got a question that's kind of specific to Giving Day and Facebook Live. Do you recommend going live more than one time over the course of a Giving Day?
You absolutely could. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I was just going to say the exact same thing. I mean, it's the math behind it, the fact that you're going to drive pretty much more views with that live content than you will just about anything else, advertising aside. I think at a minimum, you'd want to do that at least 2 or 3 times. And we worked with a client last year that had a wonderful Giving Day, and they used a a student from the broadcast school in a nice, great camera setup, and they had him live at different events. They had him go live from the phone center in the evening. I had him go live on campus, and it was by far the top performing content, as you would expect. So yeah, I mean, I think I wouldn't even put a limit on it. I mean, Liz, what do you think? Could you go live for 5 straight hours if you had the stamina to do it?
You could go live for 5 straight hours. What we actually recommend people do is that they do a morning broadcast, an early afternoon broadcast, and an evening broadcast, if they have the capacity to do that. And we do that for our customers who are really looking to maximize live and do some testing of different types of content. A really good example of this is that we recently did this in Las Vegas for the Women-Owned Business Nonprofit National Conference. And we actually did 3 30-minute live broadcasts, one in the morning, one right after lunch, and one in the evening. And one of the reasons our clients really like this is that we actually only charge another $1,000 per event on that day. So for their costs, they were able to get 3 events for $9,500 and able to get a lot more information about how well live was going to work for them in the future. So we don't think that it's so much about doing one 5-hour long chunk. It's really hard to do that. I think it's more about thinking we might do half an hour here, we might do an hour here, and another half an hour later in the day.
Perfect. Thank you guys so much. I think that kind of closes out. We've only got about 2 minutes left. If there are any last minute questions, would love to hop on. Or again, if anybody has questions you want to talk with Liz or with Justin specifically about these initiatives, their emails are here right on the screen, and we will be sharing the recording of this presentation once it is over. Once we've got it, we will share it with all of you. We are so glad to have all of you who've joined us today. Want to give Justin and Liz just a last moment to close out.
Awesome. Well, I'll give you the last word, Liz. I just want to say thank you for helping us at this webinar, and I'm excited to see the work we can do together in the future, and of course excited to see the work of everybody who's listening today and see where they take video.
Yeah, and I would just end with, you can do it. I absolutely 100% think that live is not scary. I think that many universities have media teams and they have live streaming teams on site, and I think you'd actually be surprised to hear how often they're excited to try this kind of media out. So just go for it, and of course feel free to use our run of show to help you guide your first live session. And I really wish you the best of luck in raising a ton of money using the platform.
Fantastic. Thank you guys, and thank you everyone for joining us. Have a wonderful rest of your Wednesday.